Hi, it's Peter Gross from MindMasteryHypnotist.com, and today, this video may be my least popular video ever. That is to say, that if people watch it, they may very well hate it. And that's probably okay, because going forward, and in the past, I've made lots of videos that are really centered on technique, on self-discovery, on transformation. But today's a little bit more of a tirade. So, let it be known that I really do have your best interests in mind when I say that support groups aren't always that helpful. I'm actually the member of several support groups for people who have certain conditions, mostly phobias, flying, needles, a couple of other ones I won't mention. And I try to post helpful and directive suggestions to people to be in support of people who have these phobias. But what happens in these groups sometimes is that we make a leap. That is to say, there's a difference between being supportive of people who have a phobia, let's say, and supporting people with their phobia. That is to say, giving them support in their condition as if it is permanent. And I know it comes out of a good place. It comes out of people wanting to validate that this is a serious condition, something that people are struggling with, that their struggle is real, that their fears are real. And yes, this is all true. But what ends up happening is people end up defending each other and themselves in having it. And by definition, a phobia is something that is getting in your way, that is making your world more difficult to be in. So please be careful with yourself, if nobody else, that you don't begin to defend the thing that you're trying to get rid of or that's in your way. There's acceptance of a condition, and there's also acceptance of a condition to the point of being resolute in that it will never change. And I just had a conversation with a person who was talking about how frustrating it is to have this condition. I said, and then she made some arguments. And I said, well, so are you looking to change this or not? And she said, of course I want to change it, but it never will. So you just have to deal with having it. And I thought, wow, what a dangerous demand of yourself, that I will always have this. What a dangerous conclusion, that I'll always have this. I think part of this comes from the fact that there's a tendency in psychology to imagine that there's an inner self that we have to be true to, and that if we peel away the pieces, we come to what's really us. And that sometimes when we do that, we discover that there are fears that seem very close to our center, and therefore they must really be part of us, and therefore we should defend them and make people around us, and make the world, in fact, understand that these fears are simply never going to go away. They're part of our personality. And I guess I just have to say I disagree. I disagree, in fact, with the whole idea that the way we find out who we really are is by digging deeper to the center. I'll give you a metaphor. When we're born, we're infants. We have very little understanding of ourselves or the world. And I would hate for somebody to dig so far back that they get to a place where they don't know the names of things because that's closer to their truer self. No, your truer self is actually in the future. Your truer self is you getting closer to a imagined version of yourself that is greater, that is stronger, that is more resilient and more adaptable than you are now. Was reading about the idea that that in psychology there's this thing called the Michelangelo illusion, which is that Michelangelo talked about not creating a sculpture, but by pulling away all of the marble around what was already in the sculpture. And it's the same metaphor, that somehow the inside version of us, including all of our faults that we actually don't like, that actually get in the way of our lives, are part of us, that we should defend, that we should demand that people take account of. And I want people to be respectful, and I want people to be empathetic. I'm empathetic. That's why I do what I do. But please, people, please, don't fall into the trap of defending the things you don't like about yourself because you think that otherwise people won't respect that you're going through something. In the end, after this woman defended her right, I guess, to hold on to her phobias, even though she admitted they were irrational, and that they got in her way, and she didn't like having them, I stopped arguing and I just said, that's a really interesting perspective. And I hope that you, even if you disagree with everything I say, will admit that what I've just presented is an interesting perspective.